YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. I finally made it to the James River 18 hours later. Holy crap. And on top of that, it's raining. I wanted to do some tackle, and I probably still will just throw the rain suit on and go get in the boat. But real quick though, I was sitting there thinking about, I was reading through some comments while I'm sitting here waiting on Hallman to get here. And I had a question about a few jig modifications and what jig modifications I make on my jigs. I'm going to show you real quick exactly the few, there's a handful of them that I do on every type of jig that I use. I don't care if it's a swim jig, football jig, finesse jig, doesn't matter. These are the few jig modifications I make. If you haven't yet though, hit real quick, just drop down that right hand corner, hit that sub button. That would help me out considerably. And drop a comment below, what is your favorite color of jig? Be specific. Don't just say black. I mean, I guess if it's black, say black, but like, be really specific. I'd love to know what your favorite color jig is. Drop that in the comment section below. And if you like the video, then hit that like button. That would help me a lot to know exactly who is watching this video. So thank y'all again, and I hope y'all enjoy this segment of Andrew Upshaw's Fishing Daily Fishing Tip Series. Alright guys, when it comes to jig fishing, there's only a handful of things that you definitely need to know, and this will help you in a lot of different ways. It'll help you give you the right profile for your skirt. It will help you get a better hookup ratio, and a lot of times just the overall appeal of the jig will be better. And there are a handful of things that I do that will help you in a certain different way. So right here I just have a Strike King swim jig. This is the Hack Attack swim jig, so it's got the heavy hook. I throw, like, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I throw both versions, which is the light hook version with lighter line, and then I also throw braided line for those heavy situations. Well, in this case, this is just a Strike King swim jig. It's a 1/4 ounce. I actually had this thing tied on from Pickwick. But real fast, two things that I do to my swim jigs to make them better. If you notice, I have a Strike King Rage Bug on here. This happens to be my favorite swim jig trailer. You heard that right. I know a lot of guys like a Menace, and guys like a Rage Crawl, and there's certain situations where I use a Rage Crawl, but the water has to be fairly dirty. But the subtlety of that Rage Bug is extremely good. But as you can tell, I actually remove about 1/4 of an inch off the top of that Rage Bug, so I square it up a little bit. That's the first thing I do. It's super simple. I know, guys, some of you are going to be like, oh my gosh, like I do that every time. And some of you are not going to say that. Sometimes I feel like we tend to overlook a couple really simple things that are going to make it so much better. But I want to make my swim jig compact, especially when I'm fishing a smaller weight. So the heavier the weight, the more plastic you can get away with. The less weight, the less amount of plastic you want on your bait. So if I want to keep that bait up in the water, I don't want a ton of plastic on there. I want something that is going to skip well, and if you look at this, it's a flat body, so it makes skipping like immensely better. So if I want to skip that swim jig around cover, I can do it better with the Rage Bug. Think of it like this: if you're skipping a stone, you don't want the round rock, you want the flat rock, and that's exactly what the Rage Bug gives you, and that's exactly why I fish that just like that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I modify the weed guard. So as you can see here, this is exactly how it comes out of the package. And it's nothing really wrong with it, but I don't like that angle. So if you see how the angle is coming more out than down, so I'll just simply press that down, and I want to kind of bend it a little bit. You see how I've already changed the angle of that. It's not sticking out like here anymore. It's more down. And I'll do this throughout the day. And the more fish you catch, it'll actually collapse that weed guard even more. But as you can tell, I've already changed the angle of my weed guard. I want it more of a downward angle. The hookup ratio will be immensely better if you do that. The other thing is I actually will trim the weed guard. So as you can tell, this has quite a few strands in it. And if you're in super heavy cover, leave all the strands. No questions asked, leave the strands. It'll come through a lot easier. But man, I really like thinning that out. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You're going to see guys tell you to do this, do that, whatever. The way I do it, I keep it pretty simple, is I take this weed guard and I take the bottom quarter, about the bottom quarter, so this bottom section right here, right there, and I will cut it off at the base. So right there, I will actually trim that off. So all that the weed guard is left will be this section right here. So it's super thin. So if a fish comes up there and grabs it, he's gonna get hooked like that. I mean, like, no questions asked, he's getting hooked. That is a big, big deal. I do that with my football jigs. I do that with my flipping jigs. The only time I don't do it with my flipping jigs is if I'm in really heavy cover. So like extreme bushes and stuff like that, I won't trim that weed guard because I feel like you need that bushy weed guard to actually get the hook set right. And if you are in that situation and you don't want to trim your weed guard, all you have to do is split your weed guard apart. So you just grab it like this and you kind of just split it. You see how I've kind of made a V in there? If you split it real hard, it will actually stay just like that. So that'll still give you a lot more guarded protection for flipping that heavy cover, but still give you that hookup ratio that you desire. And that's one really big thing. Another thing is I'll actually take my jig. I learned this from Kevin Short, so thank you, Kevin Short. But I'll take my jig and I'll lay the skirt like this. I want my bait to lay flat, and I'll trim a section of the skirt here, and then I'll turn my jig this way and I'll trim a little bit of the skirt off there, and it makes like a V pattern in my skirt, and it gives it a very realistic profile coming through the water. If you think about it, if it's a little short on top, a little short on the bottom, and longer in the middle, a fish, the way it swims through the water, is long on the tops and bottom, and then it V's to the tail. That's the exact same thing that this skirt does when I do it that way. Now, my football jigs, I don't trim it like that. My football jigs, I do a very old school approach. I grab it like this, and I just pull the skirt. I want to make it as odd, like looks all torn up. It's just something I've done on Toledo Bend forever. I don't know if it really matters. I believe in it. I just pull the skirt out. I like mess it all up. I make the skirts look all crazy and stuff on my football jigs. Because let's be honest, guys, when it comes to a crawfish, they got so many legs and pinchers and all this stuff going on. The more movement I can get from that jig without me actually hopping it or dragging it, the better off it's going to be. Because a crawfish is always moving its tentacles, always moving its legs. And I mean, it looks more natural that way as far as I'm concerned. So if I'm trying to imitate a crawfish, I'll tear my skirt up and make it look all torn up. But if I'm throwing a swim jig, I absolutely will V that skirt and make it look extremely realistic swimming through the water. I know these were just a couple of simple tips, but I hope they help you the next time you're out there throwing a swim jig, throwing a flipping jig, and increase that hookup ratio, because that's the one bad thing about a jig. I don't care what jig you use, the hookup ratio is never 100%. But these little bitty modifications that you make to your jig can increase it significantly. So if you do those things, you trim your weed guard, trim your skirt, shorten that trailer up a little bit, make that jig more compact, you're going to get more bites and increase that hookup ratio. Like I said though, if you go to a heavier head, you can make that plastic longer. You can put swim baits on there, 3/8 ounce, half ounce, 3/4 ounce in some situations. I remember Rumbanis throwing a 3/4 ounce swim jig on Toledo Bend and doing extremely well in an elite event there. So, you know, and you can use a lot bigger trailer in that situation because the weight can keep the plastic down. The more plastic, the more buoyancy. So you want to keep that down a little bit, especially if you're trying to reel it down. In this case, I'm trying to flatten this bait so I can skip it easier. So guys, I hope y'all like that segment of daily fishing videos. If you can, hit that sub button, like it, and comment below. And I hope y'all enjoy the next video.